Good morning, Startup Peel. Thank you so much for having me here to talk about cybersecurity in your business environment. I am Ann Genge, and I'm the CEO of Alexio Corporation, and we're in the business of privacy and security for people just like you. I am very passionate about cybersecurity, especially education, and it's not just because I have built an amazing career with it. I'm also very passionate to bring other women into this industry. We're still very underrepresented, and there are lots of places in cybersecurity for all types of people, not just those who build the security applications, not just those who use them, but also there's such a shortage of people to teach just like what we're doing today. And so I hope that I can sort of get a few more people passionate and energized about looking at cybersecurity as a career, as well as applying it in their everyday lives. So I've been told I have about 28 minutes to dazzle you, probably freak you out quite a bit as well, but hopefully give you some peace of mind by the end. And I think everyone will be shocked to know that pretty much many of you are already in a position where you've had one of your online accounts breached. Your email might likely already be on the dark web. And many people have already been involved in breaches and don't even know it. So what we're going to do now is I want you to go to monitor.firefox.com. And you can do this on your phone, of course. This is just searching up in your browser. And you can put your email address in here. Now, many of you have a few different email addresses. I understand that. You'll have a Gmail. You'll have one for your work. You can check all of them. And then you can also click this button here, and that will keep you up to date and give you an alert when your email address shows up in a breach. And the reason why this is so important is it's not just about identifying what breach you were involved in so that you can, for example, if you were involved in the LinkedIn breach, that you can go in and change your passwords and your security questions for that account. It's also giving you a cue to go and check and change passwords and security questions for all of your other online accounts as well. Because I know that most of you still reuse passwords and credentials across many different accounts. And the danger of that is these bad guys, they know that. So once they get a hold of one set of credentials on one online account breach, they'll use it and try to attack you and breach you on any number of other online accounts. And if you think about the types of accounts you have, there's social media, there are bank accounts, and many. We all have many. In fact, I was astonished when I started using a password manager and creating a unique set of credentials for each online account. There were pages of online accounts. So very, very important. Check that and stay on top of it. Now, as business owners, or even just working in any business now, is a juggling act. There are many different things that we need to be taking care of in a day. We're all collecting and using data. Some of us are solopreneurs. Some of us are startups. Especially in startups, we're busy collecting data so that we can market to people, ultimately sell to people. We're giving our own information out over different types of online accounts, sharing accounts, emails to different investors potentially. And there's a lot of data flying all over the place. And unfortunately, what I still find is that privacy and cybersecurity end up being kind of like an afterthought. In fact, we even get companies coming to our business that have found out that they need to put these cybersecurity and privacy measures in place because they've found that out during due diligence when they've been trying to fundraise for their company. Or even worse, their business has been breached and now they have to make sure they have all these things in place. So doing this sort of thing after the fact is never a great idea. But when we think about it, cybersecurity really should be for everyone. It is for everyone. Everyone's working with technology, our families, our kids, our employees. We all are having interactions with online accounts on the internet, and it's not just customer data that we have to be thinking about protecting. Our families all have to have this knowledge and be able to bulletproof themselves as well. We are responsible for employee information that we collect as business owners. And of course, we have a lot of our own personal information, a lot of sensitive financial information on our systems as well. So lots of stuff to protect. And when we collect it, we have to protect it because we don't want to have any of this stuff happen. So if we look at the screen here, it's kind of a scary thing. It's all talking about viruses and breaches and security incidences. And these things happen, and they happen because you're seeing it in the news almost every single day. So we really don't want that to happen. It's very bad for our brand when these types of data theft take place. Downtime is huge. The recovery costs can be huge, and it's very disruptive to our brand and our everyday business. But we also need to understand that we have legal responsibilities, and pretty much all of you will fall under the federal privacy law. Some of you may fall under the provincial healthcare privacy laws. But in any case, we need to at least have a basic understanding as business owners about what our obligations are to protect customer information so that we don't end up having one of those security incidences and then have an investigation by the Information Privacy Commissioner only to find out that we didn't have the right things in place when it comes to protections and policies and so on. So I know it's dry reading. I'm always around to help people for this type of thing as well. I'll give you my email address at the end. But a couple of things is that it's not just about security. It's also about privacy laws and policies that help us support security. So it's really important to take a look at that as well. So at this point, many of you might still be kind of freaked out because you did the breach search and now you're finding out that you've been involved in the LinkedIn breach, the Dropbox breach, the Yahoo breach, the Bell breach. So lots of questions floating around, and I just dumped a bunch of heavies on you about viruses and privacy laws too. But let's work through what tend to be the biggest blind spots for businesses, specifically small businesses that I see. And I think what's most alarming about it for me is not just that businesses aren't doing it, but then at some point, most of us make the connection that if everyone's doing this poorly, then how safe is my data? Because I am a consumer somewhere. I am a patient somewhere. And there are a number of entities that are collecting my information. And if 86% of businesses are not prepared for cyber attacks, 71% have already had them, and 43% don't have a cyber defense plan, then that's not so great for us as individuals either. So I think it really underscores how important it is for all of us to do much better when it comes to cybersecurity. Now, over 90% of successful cyber attacks are facilitated by human error. And that's a really alarming statistic. Now, it's not just user error. Sometimes it's configuration error. It's errors on the part of the third parties that have our data in the cloud. They've had a breach, and it all really almost always comes back to humans being involved in that process. Now, also, what's really important to know is that we're going to discuss in a few minutes about social engineering and hackers, and how hackers actually hack people as much as they hack systems. Humans often have to be the gateway to allow cyber attackers into a network. So here's your blind spots. Now we're gonna look at each one of these things. It's email, it's online document sharing, online applications like cloud-based, web-based applications. Terrible when it comes to reusing of passwords. I see this all the time. People are still sharing passwords and granting access to your accounts by third parties. And then I'm going to touch also on this thing to do with the gig economy, what's happening there. So if we start off with the first few things, it's not too hard to see that we are super connected everywhere. So we have all types of online accounts, we have social media, we have banking, we have websites, we're using email. Everything is interconnected, and there are things called APIs which connect applications together, and these are all risk vectors. These are all areas that can be gaps in the security and the privacy of our information. And so if I look at really the biggest problem, it often comes down to email and online document sharing. And we use these tools because they're really easy, but they're really not very secure at all. In fact, emails really, don't put anything on email that you wouldn't want someone else to see, because if you think about it, it's not just about our own emails getting hacked. Any one of our connections that we've shared something with, if they're hacked, then we're hacked too. And I think that people still don't get it. They'll share credit cards, driver's license numbers, bank account numbers. Really interesting when you look at things like the real estate industry, how they share information kind of willy-nilly back and forth. Even insurance. I went for some insurance last week, and she is asking me to photocopy and send my driver's license by regular email. And that's just not secure. So anything that you don't want someone else to see, email it using encrypted email. And there are some really easy and not that expensive tools that you can get and use for that. Same thing goes with online document sharing. Again, you need to sort of understand that anything that can be accessed just by a link, or the link could be reshared to someone else without even understanding who's seeing it or controlling the access, it's really unsafe. So what we would like to see people do is using document sharing and where you can control the access. Sync.com, for example, gives you 5 gigs free. You can create and share documents. It's not only encrypted, but you can control the access and password protected. Not here to do commercials for Sync.com, but it is something that works very well and is much safer than what most of you are doing now. Now, many of you are big fans of writing stuff down, writing your passwords down where everybody can see them. You need to really safeguard these. As I said earlier, they need to be different credentials for each online account that you have, but also don't share them and change them often. And you need to also remember about the credential stuffing thing, where they can reuse those passwords and credentials across many different accounts. But what I also see is a lot to do with sort of the idea that people will manage our website or manage our social media. These things get sort of farmed out. And often what I see is the social media company, for example, might send over a spreadsheet saying, please fill out this spreadsheet with all of your usernames and your passwords so we can do your posts for you. And there was one company like that I evaluated, and the organization, it was a healthcare organization that was using them actually, and they thought that it was being managed by one person, but there was actually 9 different people working on that account. So those user credentials with full admin access were being used by 9 different people across the world. There were some people in Canada, but there were some people in a few other countries as well. And so you can see instantly how the ability to track down who did what became impossible. And in those scenarios, it becomes impossible to create a good privacy and cybersecurity program because we just don't have the ability to audit those trails of who had access and when. And so, as much as many businesses do rely on the gig economy, that is where you can outsource different tasks, it's very important to be thinking cybersecurity first, be thinking privacy and security first. And is there any way possible to have these types of other individuals do this type of work, but without giving over control of your accounts or access to credentials that could be used in a nefarious way? So I don't have a full answer on how to facilitate it, but I think it's worth exploring before we make some choices to share certain types of information across these platforms. Many of you are developing, you're big innovators, you're developing products, applications, intellectual property, and a confidentiality agreement really only goes so far. So I would encourage everyone to really be thinking, even though it's very attractive to do these types of things where we're outsourcing, really try to figure out a way to do it where you always are able to maintain control. Because this is a mind-blowing slide, and I'm sure many of you are still mind-blown over the fact that you just found out that one of your or more of your online accounts were involved in a breach. But sharing is the thing that is creating sort of this big digital headache and putting everybody at huge risk. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on one thing that is pretty much the biggest problem. Now, even if you have most of your business running in the cloud, and I just want to remind you that the cloud is just somebody else's computer. But phishing is one of the huge things that you'll see happen to you when either you have gone to a certain website and put your credentials in there and it's been a phishing website, but more than likely when your email has been breached or your email account has been involved in a breach, you become a target for phishing emails. And everybody has seen these by now, the Nigerian prince, or click here because you won an iPad, or your shipment has been delayed, click here to redirect it. There are many, many different examples. And those types of phishing emails are all designed to take advantage of you in some way. They're either there to help the attacker to gain access to something, to steal information, or the most popular thing nowadays, ransomware. And depending on the size of the audience today, there may be a number of you who have already experienced this in your business. But what ransomware is typically comes in through an email, a phishing email. And once you click on it, you'll see a screen like this. And it'll say that your computer is locked. It will tell you how much you have to pay to get it unlocked. It'll say how to do that. And it's usually through Bitcoin or another type of cryptocurrency, which is untraceable. And it's also going to give you a very urgent timeline under which you need to pay, or your data will not be unlocked. So they lock up your data and they hold it for ransom. Now, what's even nicer of them in the last 3 years or so is many ransomwares today will not only do that, but they will also steal data and say, if you don't pay us, we're going to publish it online. Now, some will even go a step further and say that they will call your business partners and let them know that you've been a victim of ransomware. There was a healthcare case last year under which the cyber attackers actually phoned patients of a healthcare clinic and asked them to pay, or else their individual personal health information would be released for public consumption. So this is a huge problem. But what I will tell you is, if you keep your systems up to date, you run a multi-layered type of cybersecurity program on your network, you will have a good chance of bulletproofing yourself from this, as long as you put together the educational component like we're doing today. And there are a number of companies that can do that for you. Obviously, mine is one as well. But you don't want to be finding out about this after the fact. So some of you are sitting there and thinking, well, I have everything in the cloud. I'm fine. The cloud is safe. It's secure. No biggie. But as I said a few minutes ago, the cloud really is just somebody else's computer. In this case, what you're looking at is what's called a data center. And what happens is, when you use online applications, or you can host some of them yourself, you are part of one of these or a number of these different machines within a data center. And they do have really great security. They do have great backup. They have power redundancy. They have internet redundancy, and all as well. However, there are two things that can happen here that still end up not being as risk-free as people think. And one is, like we saw in the last couple of weeks, actually, even Microsoft, the U.S. government, some other governments around the world have been breached because human error. Weak passwords at lower levels that allowed these hackers to get in and escalate and finally have stolen a lot of really important government intelligence. So it still has to be configured and managed properly for you, and those are still leaky buckets. And then the other piece that is really quite hysterical, if you think about it, is that no matter how secure any of this is, if somebody just simply gets your password, you're done. They can get in and they can do whatever they want anyway. So this brings into mind that there are ways that you can provide yourself an extra layer of defense with your online accounts, and that is something called multi-factor or two-factor authentication. And all that is a second step to logging in. Now, you may already be familiar with that. Generally what it is you go to log into an account, and either it requires you to show your face on your phone, or a PIN number comes to your text, and then you enter that code. Having those extra layers, very, very important for the security of your business data. So let's just do a little wrap up here. We need to know and always have an inventory of what applications we're using. So as a solopreneur, like as a single person working in a home-based business, for example, it might be fairly easy for us to take inventory. But as we grow and scale our businesses, we really need to have like a living inventory of that. We need to also know where all of the different types of data lives. Some is on our systems, some is in our online CRMs, applications, but we'll find that our customer and business data often resides in a number of different places and a number of different copies. We always want to have a really good handle on where that is and always be reviewing who has access to it. Revoking access, having a termination policy so that when we let employees go or they leave, we can make sure that we revoke all of their accesses easily. We need to know how we're going to get back into operation if we have a computer failure or a server failure or a ransomware attack. And then also understanding what are our basic legal responsibilities when we collect, store, and use personal information. It can be very different depending on the industry that you're in. And the expectation is always that you will protect data sort of in line with the sensitivity that it has. So financial data is very sensitive, legal documents, health information, for example. But it's all our responsibility to protect it. So I'm giving you my email address here because I'm sure that I have just created more questions than answers, is usually the case. I want you all to know that I really love being able to have conversations with all of you. Please reach out to me by email. Happy International Women's Day. Keep blazing, everyone.